Well, hello and welcome once again to the Waters and Stanton video channel. End-fed half-wave antennas, they've become very popular over the last few years, perhaps longer than just a few years.
Let's just remind ourselves what an end-fed half wave is. It's a length of wire which is resonant at a half wave on the lowest frequency, and it has the ability to operate on harmonics above that band. And it's fed with a 49:1 unan because there's a high impedance at the end of that wire. We can then attach coax cable to it and feed that back to our transceiver. That means a 20-meter length of wire would be resonant on the 40-meter band and also operate on the 20, 15 and 10-meter bands.
And I've used one of these on and off at my home station. The longest period I've used one for is about 2 years. But you know, there's a sort of a love-hate relationship with this particular antenna. It seems to me those that have used it, the majority of them find it very good. It's a very nice antenna. It works extremely well. It gives you multi-band operation, and it's pretty easy to erect and take down. But there are those that really ridicule it and say, no, it's not a good antenna, it's noisy and it doesn't work that well and it's not very efficient. So what is the truth really about this antenna? Well, you know, when we make comparisons with antennas, we talk about efficiency, how well the antennas work, how much power it actually emits, what is the power that it delivers, what are the losses. You know, sometimes we can frighten ourselves. Let me give you an example. If I go into a shop, I'm going to say Costa Coffee, but there are other shops. I go into Costa Coffee and I buy 2 cups of coffee and a cake, and it comes to $9.95, and I get my credit card out or my smartphone out and just hold it over the machine, and that's it. Put it away. But if I hand over the counter a £10 note and I only get 5p change, I think, wow, gosh, that's expensive. And you know, it's the same price, isn't it? But it's just the fact that if you're handling cash, it seems to sort of trigger something in your brain. And you think, gosh, that's expensive, but it doesn't trigger the same thing in terms of your credit card, at least. That's the way I see it. You know, it's the same thing with antennas. If I was to say, look, do you realise that you're losing 10% of your power, your 100 watts that you emit from your transceiver is only actually 90 watts at the antenna end. And you think, gosh, I'm losing 10% of my power. But if we relate that to dB, it's a tiny fraction of a decibel. It's the same thing, isn't it? You can get frightened over power loss, but you're reassured when you find that it's only a fraction of a dB. And I think there's some of that in antennas. We fool ourselves into either thinking it's a big loss or it's a small loss. When we look at the end-fed half-wave antenna, we look at several factors. First of all, we look at what's the loss on our bit of coax. What is the sort of, you know, the basic loss of that bit of coax if it's perfectly matched? Then we look at what's the loss on that coax. If we say we get a VSWR of 2:1, generally speaking, on an end-fed half-wave, you won't get a VSWR much higher than 2:1, and very often you'll get it much lower than that. But nevertheless, what is the loss with a bit of coax, with that sort of VSWR? And how long is that coax going to be? You know, one of the advantages of an end-fed half-wave is it doesn't need a long length of coax because you tend to feed it at the end, and most stations actually run a bit of coax out of the window or through the wall, up to the top of the mast, connects it to the transformer. So let's say 50 foot is probably the longest length of coax cable that a lot of stations will use. So it's not a long length. So we're going to look at a 50-foot length of coax, and we're going to say, okay, this coax might have a 2:1 VSWR. Let's see what the loss is. And then what about the unan, the transformer, the 49:1 transformer? I say 49:1 because that's the common value. Some will go higher and some will go lower, but 49:1 is the sort of bulk standard value that most unans are built with if they're designed to feed an end-fed wire. So what's the loss in that unknown. Now, when it comes to coax cable, it's important to get realistic about it. Remember, all coax cable has a loss. Even the most expensive cable has a loss. And the loss depends on the length and on the frequency, and of course on the type of cable. If you're thinking of upgrading your coax cable, do first of all check out what the improvement's going to be. Remember, a change of less than 1 dB is very, very small indeed. As a rough rule of thumb, 1 dB change in signal strength or power, whatever you like to call it, is just detectable. Anything less than 1 dB is not detectable. Now, below this video, I've put a calculator. You can calculate the loss on your coax cable depending on the frequency, the length of it, and the type of cable you've got, the reference number, RG58213, etc., etc. Enter those details in there and then see what the difference in the loss is. Remember that if you've got a shortish length of coax cable, which you're highly likely to have on an end-fed half-wave antenna, it may be that it doesn't justify the extra expense of buying thicker coax cable. Now, another thing to remember is that the VSWR, as it increases, so the coax loss will increase. The loss on the coax cable will increase. But it's very, very small. The difference between a perfect match and a 2-to-1 match, 2-to-1 VSWR match, which shock horror might shock some of you, is very small. It's generally far less than 1 decibel, particularly on a short length of cable, particularly on the medium frequencies like 40 meters or 20 meters. You may be surprised how little change there is with that VSWR. The more important thing is, will the transceiver match it? Transceivers don't like to see a high VSWR, and once they get to around about 2-to-1 or above, they start to close down, so you'll lose power. You're not losing that power in the coax, you're just losing it because the transceiver sees that VSWR as a bit higher than it's comfortable with, and it could obviously start to damage the transceiver. Don't worry, all transceivers are pretty well protected now, but it does start to reduce the power. So the trick here is to insert an antenna matching unit. Most modern transceivers have got an antenna matching unit in them. Just switch that on into circuit. You'll appear to have a sort of perfect match as far as the transceiver is concerned. It won't change it on the coax cable, but the transceiver will then be quite happy to deliver full power into your coax cable. So it's always important to check what improvement you're going to get by spending more money on coax cable, whether or not, even if you can't get the VSWR below about 2-to-1, whether or not you're actually going to lose that much. Sometimes you have to live with imperfection. Imperfection doesn't mean to say things don't work. And sometimes perfection, for the sake of perfection, just doesn't justify the extra work. So we've talked about the coax cable and the loss in coax cable, and a bit of loss when you've got a bit of VSWR, but neither of these things are very dramatic. So let's look now at the unknown transformer, the 49-to-1 transformer, see what sort of losses we expect there, and then at the end we'll put everything together and see what realistically the efficiency is on a typical end-fed half-wave antenna.
Manufacturers of 49-to-1 unknowns don't seem to publish their insertion loss figures and a frequency response, but here's a generic response based on the FT240-43 material, and you'll see there's a sweet spot around about between 7 MHz and say 14 or 21 MHz. You'll also see that as we go lower in frequency, so the loss increases, likewise as we go higher in frequency, the loss increases. And this response curve is based on a well-matched antenna. If the SWR rises, then so would the losses increase. Now I've put up on the screen here a chart showing typical losses you'll get on 7 MHz and 14 MHz using two different types of cable, RG58 and RG213. And I've added a 2-to-1 VSWR, which is probably typical on the band edges. Finally, I've also added in the estimated loss on the 49:1 transformer. Remember, this is on 50 feet of Coax cable, and as you'll see, RG58 you're going to get just over 1 dB loss, and on RG213 below 1 dB loss. And also remember, this is at a 2:1 VSWR. If you've got a much lower VSWR, then you can see from the chart and work out yourself what the loss is. And you may want to halt this video just to take a look at this chart and take it all in.
Now, the figures that I've just put up on the screen are based on a good installation, setup and resonant. As soon as you start to go off frequency, then not only do you get SWR loss on the coax, but you'll start to increase the loss on the actual transformer itself. And I have actually made a bit of allowance for the transformer, assuming that you're not going to get a 1:1 VSWR, so I've allowed that in the figures. But if you start to go towards the band edges 2:1, then the transformer losses will start to increase. Now, one or two things I should mention. First of all, coax losses occur on all systems. So whether you've got a dipole, whether you've got a vertical, or whether you've got an end-fed half wave, you're going to get coax losses of the same level. The fact that you're probably going to have a shorter length of coax on an end-fed half wave does give it a slight advantage in terms of losses, because the shorter length of coax is you get a lower loss. Now, as regards the transformer, I would encourage you to get a decent rated transformer. If you want to minimise your losses, then even if you're using a 100-watt transceiver, consider getting a higher power rated end-fed half wave unknown, because it will have heavier windings. It will probably be stacked ferrite cores, and altogether the losses will reduce. As with any ferrite transformer, when you run low power through it, the losses diminish quite significantly. And when you run high power through it near the limit, then the losses increase. So bear that in mind. So I hope this video has encouraged you to give the end-fed half wave a try if you haven't tried it. And do remember, of course, it's multi-band, and any multi-band antenna is going to have increased losses. So whether it's a trapped dipole or an end-fed half wave, you're going to lose a bit of power in the traps, etc., etc. So it all starts to become a bit of a level playing field when you're looking at multi-band antennas. I personally like the antenna. I think it's a great antenna for beginners. I think it gets you on the air quickly. It's simple to install, and it's not that expensive. And it's certainly weatherproof. If it falls down, you put it up again. It's not like a 3-element you argue with a rotator and all the other bits and pieces you have with it. And one thing I have actually mentioned before, and I will mention again, do use a line isolator at the shack end. That's quite important. So there we are. Hope it's been of interest to you, this video, and I hope it's encouraged you to do some further work and experiment on antennas. And if you watch the channel regularly, why not press the subscribe button, and that notifies you when we've got new videos coming up. In the meantime, you enjoy your ham radio. Don't forget, Waters and Stanton, we've got a great store full of gear. It doesn't matter whether you're looking for a plug or a £2,000 transceiver. You'll get equal service, speed of delivery, etc., etc. Don't forget, we also do part exchange. Got some great part exchange deals. And if you order on the internet, you may well find you get some better prices. Take a look at our website. There we are. You take care. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.